Jim had worked as a park ranger for many years, and he held a deep affection for his job. Every morning, he walked the same trail, watching the animals go about their routines and making sure their water sources stayed clean and full. Even though the landscape rarely changed, Jim never stopped being amazed by the beauty and quiet surprises the forest offered. But the day he stumbled upon that particular nest, he immediately sensed that something was wrong. Jim had passed this same nest nearly every day for years. He remembered when it first appeared. He had watched it take shape, watched it grow, and had come to expect the cheerful chirping of birds from it long before he reached the tree. But today, silence. He could still hear the usual sounds elsewhere. Leaves rustling in the breeze, birds calling from deeper within the park. But around this tree, there was nothing, just an unnatural stillness that had never happened before. There wasn't a single bird in sight. Normally, at least one or two would be flitting about, fussing with twigs or hopping along the branches. Cautiously, Jim stepped closer, not wanting to startle the birds if they were inside. From the outside, the nest looked perfectly normal. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe they were just out foraging. He couldn't be sure. He didn't want to intrude without a good reason, so he chose to leave it alone for now. He'd check again tomorrow. If the nest still seemed deserted, he would investigate further. But all day long, the strange silence lingered in his mind. Something didn't feel right. He hoped, perhaps foolishly, that by the next morning, everything would be back to normal. It wouldn't be. In fact, Jim would soon find himself calling the police. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The following morning, Jim arrived at the park earlier than usual. He was eager to check the nest. As soon as he reached the tree, the uneasy feeling returned. Still, he told himself not to jump to conclusions. Then he saw them: odd marks in the dirt around the tree. He knelt down to inspect them. They weren't from any animal he recognized, and Jim knew the local wildlife like the back of his hand. "Oh no," he muttered, immediately imagining the kinds of predators that could have left those marks. His mind raced with possibilities, but as he scanned the surrounding area, he noticed something important. There were no feathers on the ground, no signs of a struggle. If the birds had been attacked, there would be some trace of it. But everything was clean. That meant whatever happened, the birds likely left on their own, or had been taken somehow without a fight. The nest sat high up in the tree, out of sight. He needed to get a look inside to be sure. So Jim returned to the ranger station and grabbed his equipment. This time, instead of walking, he took the truck. Back at the tree, he set up a tall ladder. It wobbled slightly as he climbed, but he was too focused to care. Under normal circumstances, the commotion would have scared the birds out of the nest, but there was still no movement, no sound. That only deepened his concern. Every step closer, Jim became more certain. The nest was empty. Still, he had to see it with his own eyes. To get a clear view inside, he would need to cut through part of the nest, so he had brought the tools for it. As he neared the top of the ladder, he got his first proper look, and what he saw made his breath catch. "What? How is this possible?" he gasped. The shock almost made him lose his balance. Quick interruption. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to us. Thank you. The nest, which was normally thick and well-crafted, had a large gaping hole in it, something no bird would have made. This was clearly the result of outside interference. And now that he could finally see inside, his fears were confirmed. The birds were gone. But the nest wasn't completely empty. Something else was inside. Something that shouldn't have been there at all. Jim scrambled back down the ladder, heart pounding. He reached for his phone and called the police. His voice was tense as he explained what he'd found. How the nest was empty, how it had been tampered with, and how something strange had been left behind. He expected the urgency in his voice to prompt action, but the police didn't seem too concerned. They brushed it off, saying it was probably just an animal or some strange, harmless occurrence. They told Jim to keep an eye on it, but not to worry. Jim stood there, phone in hand, surrounded by the stillness of the park. Frustration bubbled up inside him. He knew something wasn't right, and yet the people who were supposed to help weren't listening. So he made up his mind. If the police wouldn't investigate, he would. Back at the nest, Jim began his own search. He walked slowly around the tree, eyes scanning the ground. He looked for anything out of the ordinary. Scratches, prints, broken twigs, pieces of trash. Anything that might explain what had happened. He documented everything, took photos, made notes. This was no longer just a quiet curiosity. It was a mystery he needed to solve. He also reached out to the other rangers. "Have you noticed anything strange near the big nest recently?" he asked. One by one. Most said no. A few shrugged. Nothing out of the ordinary, they told him. Still, Jim didn't give up. Next, he asked park visitors, "Have you noticed anything strange near the nest on your walks?" He asked them kindly. Most people shook their heads, but a few mentioned hearing strange sounds. One or two spoke of seeing shadowy movements near the tree. It wasn't much, but to Jim, every little detail mattered. Back in his office, Jim laid out his notes and photos, seeking a pattern. The pieces were few and confusing. Odd sounds reported by visitors, his colleagues lacking unusual observations, and, above all, the silence of the nest. Jim stared at the information, trying to connect these disparate elements into a coherent story. What was happening at that nest? Refocusing on the tree and its surroundings, he spotted a pattern in the marks near the tree's base. Almost hidden beneath the undergrowth, these marks weren't random or the result of natural wear. They appeared deliberate, even methodical. But what could they mean? This new discovery added another layer of mystery to the silent nest. As Jim examined the peculiar marks by the tree, a realization dawned on him. These signs weren't the work of animals. They bore the unmistakable hint of human interference. The pattern of the marks and their placement all suggested deliberate action by someone. This was a critical shift in Jim's investigation. The silent nest was now a scene of human involvement. Further inspection revealed more telling signs hidden among the foliage. Jim found footprints too large and distinct to be from any animal in the park. Nearby, there were faint but discernible tool marks on the tree bark. These were not random. They were the result of specific, intentional actions. Jim's heart raced as he documented each footprint and mark, a growing sense of urgency within him. Recalling the visitors' reports of shadows and sounds, Jim started to see a pattern. He remembered seeing lights in the park after hours, something he had initially dismissed. Their behavior, the tools, the timing of their visits, all pointed to a connection with the unusual occurrences at the nest. Jim knew he was onto something significant. He needed to continue his surveillance and gather enough evidence to prove their involvement in whatever was unfolding in his park. Jim's investigation took a worrying turn when he found a note pinned to his office door. "Stop looking where you shouldn't." The message was clear and threatening. Someone had noticed his snooping and wasn't happy about it. This revelation gave Jim a chill, but it also reassured him that he was on the right path. Despite the foreboding signs, Jim stood firm in his resolve. If anything, the sense of danger only heightened his determination. He knew the stakes were rising, but so was the urgency of his investigation. Jim strengthened his resolve, understanding that backing off would mean allowing whatever was happening in the park to continue unchecked. On a hunch, Jim decided to explore an overgrown path he'd previously overlooked. It was tucked away in a less frequented part of the park, hidden by thick foliage. Carefully making his way through, he found it led to a secluded area, not visible from the main paths. It was the perfect spot for someone wanting to avoid detection. In this hidden area, Jim's discoveries were alarming. He found several tools that seemed out of place in a nature reserve, along with empty cages of various sizes. These items hinted at illegal activities, possibly wildlife trapping or something equally sinister. Jim documented everything with his camera, the gravity of his findings weighing heavily on him. The hint of a hidden secret within the nest caught the officer's attention. It was a calculated move by Jim to draw the police into the investigation and steer them toward the core of the mystery. Convinced by the evidence Jim had gathered, the police decided to work alongside him. For Jim, it marked an important breakthrough. His persistence and dedication had finally paid off. Together, they laid out a plan to dig deeper into the case. Jim felt a sense of validation and hope. With the authorities on his side, they could delve deeper into the mysteries surrounding the park and the nest. In a meeting with the police, Jim laid out all his evidence. He presented the photographs of the tools and cages, the patterns of the suspicious group's visits, and his notes on the strange activities around the nest. The officers listened intently, their skepticism turning into concern as the scale of potential illegal activities in the park became apparent. Together with the police, Jim began strategizing an operation to uncover the full extent of the illegal activities in the park. During the sting operation, Jim and the police made a startling discovery. Inside the nest, hidden beneath the foliage, was a cache of rare animal eggs. These eggs were not native to the park, and their presence there was both illegal and dangerous for the local ecosystem. This discovery was the missing piece of the puzzle, linking the mysterious activities in the park to wildlife smuggling. Investigation of the eggs led to a shocking revelation. They were part of a larger illegal wildlife trade network. The smugglers had been using the park as a secret hub for their illicit activities, endangering rare species. This network was more extensive and organized than anyone had anticipated, operating under the cover of the park's natural beauty. In the sting operation, Jim's role was crucial. Utilizing his extensive knowledge of the park, he helped the police position themselves strategically to catch the smugglers without alarming them. His understanding of the terrain and the behavior of the suspicious group proved invaluable. Jim, usually a park ranger, found himself in the middle of an undercover operation. The operation was a success. The smugglers, caught red-handed with the rare eggs, were arrested. The evidence gathered by Jim, combined with the police's strategic planning, led to a swift and effective capture. This moment was a triumph for Jim and the police, marking the end of the smugglers' illegal activities in the park and the beginning of justice for the wildlife they endangered. With the smugglers captured, the full extent of their operations came to light. The investigation revealed a complex network involved in the illegal trade of rare animals and their eggs. The nest in the park had been just one part of their widespread illegal activities. Jim's dedication and the collaborative effort with the police had uncovered a significant wildlife smuggling ring, bringing it to an end. The smugglers, once apprehended, faced the full weight of the law for their crimes. The court hearings uncovered the vast scope of their illegal activities, underscoring the seriousness of wildlife trafficking. Justice was served, as they received penalties appropriate to the severity of their offenses. This outcome represented a significant win for wildlife preservation and a powerful reminder of the need for constant vigilance and conservation efforts. Did you enjoy the story? When faced with the risks and threats, would you have acted as Jim did? Did you know that 200 to 2,000 species of animals go extinct every year? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Courage and determination are sometimes rewarded. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video, and have a great day.